Elena Moore. She walked out of a psychiatric facility on the morning of June 11, 2026, got in a cab the facility had arranged for her, asked the driver to take her to the CVS on Sunset Boulevard in Lexington, the same CVS where she worked, the one she knew by heart. She went inside. The driver waited. She didn't come back out. He went in after her. Asked around. Nobody could find her. Just gone. In the middle of the day. Inside a building she knew better than almost anywhere else. That was at some point before 2 p.m. The next confirmed sighting of Elena Moore was at 6:38 that evening, when she scanned into a Planet Fitness gym 2 miles away and worked out for over 2 hours like it was any other Thursday. What happened in between, those missing hours, that gap nobody has explained, is the question at the center of this entire case. And it's the question I keep coming back to, because Elena Moore was found dead 6 days later in the woods outside Lexington, South Carolina. She was 39 years old. No marks on her body, no cause of death, no answers. Not yet. Let me take you back a few weeks, because to understand June 11th, you need to understand what the people who loved Elena had been watching happen to her. On May 31st, 2026, Elena sat down for brunch with her friend Sandra Campbell. Sandra had known her for over 10 years. She knew exactly how Elena Moore existed in a room, loud, fully present, the kind of woman who forgets her phone because she's too busy actually paying attention to you. That was Elena at her baseline. That Sunday was different. She got up once during the meal, walked all the way to the front door of the restaurant, stood there looking out at the street, not at anything specific, just out, and then came back to the table. She kept watching whoever walked through that door the whole time they ate. When brunch ended and Sandra got up to leave, she had to go pick up her son. Elena hugged her. Not one of those quick goodbye hugs you give someone you'll see again next week. A real one. The kind where you can feel the other person holding on for just a second longer than the moment calls for. And before she let go, Elena said she was scared for her life. Sandra asked what she meant. Elena looked around the restaurant, said there were too many people nearby, that they needed to be somewhere private, that she would explain everything later. That conversation never happened. Elena Catherine Moore was the kind of person other people called when things fell apart. She lived in Lexington, South Carolina, a suburb of Columbia, small enough that everybody knows somebody who knows you, big enough to keep a secret when you need to. She was a personal trainer. She spent her days helping people get stronger, showing up with real energy and encouragement, even when she might not have had any left for herself. She bartended at local spots around the area. She was a pharmacy technician at CVS. 3 completely different jobs, 3 completely different circles of people, and all of them say the same thing about her. She made you feel like the only person in the room. She was the friend who actually stayed when things got bad, who showed up, who you could tell everything to. She had been with a man named Brandon Slice since around 2013, 13 years. He worked as a deputy sheriff for the Lexington County Sheriff's Department for 14 years, a man whose entire professional identity was built around protecting people. They got married on February 29, 2024. A leap day, the one date on the calendar that only exists once every 4 years. And somewhere in the 2 years between that wedding and the morning she walked into those woods, something shifted. Her social media, which had always been active, went almost completely quiet. Her friends could feel something was wrong. And at that brunch at the end of May, sitting across from one of her closest friends in the world, Elena Moore could not stay in her chair. To understand any of that, you have to go back almost a decade further. July 13, 2017. Elena sent a Facebook message to a friend named Aston Jeffcoat. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't a crisis, it was just a woman, almost 5 years into a relationship, quietly reaching out to say she might be done, she might be ready to leave, she might need somewhere else to go. The exact words, as Aston shared them with Fox News Digital after Elena died, "Hey girl, not sure about situation, but just from reading your post, I might be ending my almost 5-year relationship as well, and might be looking for a roommate." She didn't leave. That message sat in Aston's inbox for 9 years. 9 years. A woman wrote down that she wanted out, stayed for 9 more years, and the person she told held on to it the whole time, without ever knowing there would come a day she'd need to show it to someone. Her friend Lauren Beasley described what followed with one word: cycles. Elena went through cycles of wanting to leave and then not leaving. Things would be hard, then they'd seem better, then they'd be hard again, over and over, for years. Cycles covers a lot of ground without explaining any of it. It doesn't tell you what kept her there. It doesn't tell you what she was hoping for. It just tells you the pattern was real, and that the people who loved her watched it go on for the better part of a decade, 9 years of that, all the way through February of 2024, when Elena put on a dress, and married Brannon Slice on a day that barely exists on the calendar. She posted about it. She called herself Mrs. Slice. By every outward appearance, it looked like a happy day, the kind you'd choose specifically because you want it to feel unrepeatable, chosen on purpose. But she had spent 7 years cycling through wanting to go before she got there. And within 2 years of that leap day wedding, she was scanning a restaurant for eavesdroppers before she could bring herself to tell her best friend she was afraid. 1 week before Elena disappeared, on June 4th, a couple named Sarah Burleson and John Moore, no relation to Elena, captured something on their Ring doorbell camera. A DoorDash order had been delivered to their apartment. Elena picked it up. Not her food, not her door. When John opened up to get his delivery, Elena tried to walk inside, into their home, into an apartment that had nothing to do with her, belonging to people she apparently didn't know well. They handled it calmly. But about an hour later, Sarah found Elena outside a neighbor's apartment, going through packages. She walked over and asked her what she was doing. Elena said, "I have no idea what I'm doing." Those exact words. Sarah spoke to the press afterward and said what she'd witnessed had genuinely scared her. And she asked the question that I haven't been able to shake since I first read it. If Elena was that disoriented a full week before she went missing, what state was she in on the night she disappeared? There was also an EMS dispatch from that same day, a woman in her 30s appearing heavily paranoid, responding to internal stimuli. Clinical language for someone reacting to things that aren't actually there. After June 4th, Elena was taken to a hospital and then to Three Rivers Behavioral Health in West Columbia. She went voluntarily, which meant she could leave whenever she chose. She left on June 11th. Now, Sandra Campbell has pushed back hard on the idea that Elena was seriously mentally ill. She told reporters Elena had a history of anxiety, nothing beyond that. Her read on that Ring camera footage wasn't a woman breaking down. It was a woman who was terrified of something real, someone in danger, not someone losing her mind. I think both things can be true simultaneously, and I want to say that clearly. Someone can have anxiety, be on medication, have had that medication changed, and also be genuinely afraid of something. Those aren't competing explanations. They're things that can exist in the same person at the same time. The question of what was actually happening with Elena Moore in those final weeks is one I don't think anyone has fully answered yet. What I keep coming back to is that cab ride. She left Three Rivers. The facility arranged transportation. The cab took her to the CVS on Sunset Boulevard. Her CVS, the place she worked, a building she walked into hundreds of times. She went inside. The driver waited. She didn't come back out. He went in to look for her. She was gone. And then 3 hours later, she's at a gym 2 miles away, scanning in with her membership card, talking to staff at the front desk. Where was she? What happened in those 3 hours? Nobody has answered that publicly. That gap is still open. June 11th, 2026. Elena signs into Planet Fitness on Whiteford Way at 6:38 p.m. Olive green, zip-up hoodie, black athletic pants. The surveillance footage shows her at the front desk, talking to staff. She looks like someone having a normal evening. She works out. At some point, she leaves. Other footage picks her up walking in the direction of the wooded area behind the nearby Lowe's, alone, heading toward the trees. At 9:17 p.m., a camera in the Publix parking lot on Old Cherokee Road catches her, about half a mile from the gym. Same clothes, still alone. Walking toward the road, that is the last confirmed image of Elena Moore alive. The next morning, June 12th, Brannon Slice reported her missing. Police launched a search. Drones, multiple agencies, teams working systematically through the wooded areas around the gym and pushing outward. For days, nothing. June 15th, heavy police presence near the Lowe's. Not a recovery operation. Still elimination mode, ruling out locations one by one. June 17th, a tip. Someone had seen Elena near North Lake Drive and Old Cherokee Road on the night of the 11th. They had watched the news coverage and remembered something. Police expanded into the woods near Lakeside Middle School, about a mile and a half from the gym. At 2:48 p.m., search teams found a body. Olive green zip-up hoodie, black athletic pants. Chief Terrence Green said publicly that the media coverage had generated the tip that led directly to that discovery. Someone turned on the news and remembered. June 19th, the Lexington County coroner confirmed what most people already feared. The body was Elena Catherine Moore, 39 years old. She had been in those woods for 6 days. The preliminary autopsy happened June 21st at the Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston. Coroner Margaret Fisher released the findings the next day. No evidence of traumatic injury. I want to sit with that for a second, because I don't think those words fully land until you put them next to everything else. No bruising, no lacerations, No gunshot wound, no stab wound, no blunt force trauma, no strangulation. The outside of this woman's body, a woman who told her best friend she was scared for her life, who was found in the woods after 6 days, who had spent her entire career building physical strength in people, had nothing to say about how she died. Toxicology has been ordered. Histological studies, microscopic tissue analysis have been ordered. Medical records are under review. The toxicology is specifically looking for substances that don't leave marks, and that matters here, because she walked out of a behavioral health facility on the same day she disappeared. What medications was she on? Had anything changed recently? What did her clinical picture actually look like in those final weeks? Not the version on social media, but the real one. No further information will be released until all of that comes back. Could be weeks, could be months. Before I get to where this investigation stands right now, I want to put something on the table about Brandon Slice, and I want to do it fairly, because I think this case deserves that. Sandra Campbell told Fox News Digital that she personally witnessed how Brandon spoke to and treated Elena behind closed doors, that the marriage was far from happy, that Elena had told her his consistent message to her was, "All you have is me." At the same time, Brandon reported his wife missing. He cooperated with investigators. A private investigator close to him went on television and said there were no concerns about the marriage, that Brandon and Elena had built a life together, and that he planned on spending the rest of his life with her. The police have been explicit at every stage. Brandon Slice is not a suspect, not a person of interest. Both of those realities are in this case right now. I'm not here to tell you which one is true. What I can tell you is that there's one thing Brandon did in the days after Elena went missing that I think belongs in this record, regardless of how everything else resolves. He posted on Facebook that Elena was not well, and then he deleted it. I'll be honest, that detail has stuck with me. It could mean a dozen different things. Maybe he posted it in grief and immediately regretted how it read. Maybe someone advised him to take it down. Maybe it just felt wrong once he saw it out there. But a person who removes what they said publicly about their missing wife is someone who changed their mind about what they wanted the world to know. In a case with no confirmed cause of death, where SLED has taken over the investigation, that detail deserves to be in the room. SLED, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, is now leading this. These aren't the people you call in for accidents or straightforward deaths. They're called in when a local department needs resources and capabilities beyond what they have. They are looking at everything, and I keep coming back to February 29th while they do. 7 years of cycles before that wedding. 7 years of that 2017 energy. I might be ready, I might need somewhere else to go, followed by staying. And then Elena chose the rarest date on the calendar to become his wife. I don't know what was in her head when she picked that date. I don't know if it felt like finally arriving somewhere or like something she couldn't fully name. 7 years of cycles is 7 years of interior life that nobody can see from the outside. What I know is that 2 years after that leap day, she was telling Sandra Campbell she was scared for her life. And before she could explain what she meant, before that private conversation could ever actually happen, she was gone. Elena Moore's cause of death is officially unknown. The answer to how a 39-year-old woman ended up dead in a forest in South Carolina is not coming fast, and anyone who tells you they already know what happened is guessing. Brandon Slice is not a suspect. That's official, and it can change, or it may never change. Both outcomes are genuinely possible right now. SLED is investigating, and somewhere in a toxicology lab, samples from Elena Moore's body are sitting there, waiting to tell investigators something the outside of her body refused to say. Sandra Campbell is living with that brunch, with that hug, with the words "I'm scared for my life" and the explanation she never got to hear. She told reporters she cannot accept a version of this story where Elena simply wandered alone into the woods at night. Her exact words, "My friend would not be alone walking at nighttime." Lauren Beasley is living with 9 years of watching those cycles, with that 2017 message that Aston Jeffcoat held for nearly a decade that now reads completely differently than it ever did before. And somewhere, Brandon Slice is living with the fact that the woman he married is dead. Whatever the investigation finds, whatever the truth of those last 2 years turns out to be, she is gone. That loss is real, regardless of everything else. But her friends are not moving on. They are not accepting a version of this where she walked into those trees by herself, and that's the whole story. They knew her, and what they knew of her doesn't fit that ending. So I'll leave you where I started. She walked out of Three Rivers Behavioral Health on the morning of June 11th. Got in a cab, went to the CVS where she worked, walked inside, and then she was gone for almost 3 hours before she showed up at a gym 2 miles away and acted like it was any other Thursday. Where was she? What happened in that window? That's the gap nobody has closed. That's the question this whole case is still sitting inside. If you know anything about what happened to Elena Moore, if you know what she was trying to tell Sandra at that brunch, if you saw her anywhere in Lexington on the evening of June 11th, please contact SLED or the Lexington Police Department. Detective Santoro at the Lexington PD, 803-358-7271. And tell me in the comments, what do you think was in those 3 hours? Because I have a feeling somebody watching this right now knows something. And Elena Moore's friends deserve an answer. If you're new here, subscribe. This case is nowhere near over.